So let's start with the NetBean again. So we are going to create a new project, Java application again. Next, let's call it week 5. And we need the main finished. Wait for the project to create it. Set the size properly. And you see? Yeah. Of course you do. You're first row. I'm talking about. I'm not talking to you. Alright, so to warm up and also review our methods. In Java we have methods. Some of you might know it as a function or modules, whatever it is. So what it is program can break down into the small portions, as you know. And let's have one of them that we did before. So we're gonna go public, which is tells you the accessibility of that method. So methods can be public, protected, private, all that. So we get to that in the meantime. So for now, anything we do is public. Static. Static tells you it can be accessed anywhere. So there's two kind of methods. There's one method that is part of an object. When you create the object from a class, you have a method that you can access through that object, and there is another method that you can access anytime, anywhere, in any class. Those methods are static. Oh, we're gonna create both of them today so you can get an idea what it is. So this is static, means you can call it directly, and let's call it average. And we're gonna have, let's say, 3 integer. These are local variables, so we're gonna go integer num2 and integer num3. Just open my scope, close it up. So this double here tells me what kind of variable or what kind of variable actually I'm returning here. That gives me an error because what happened? I think that should be inside the So I made a mistake. This is the method has to be inside the class, not inside the main. So that's the right location for it. So I need to return, and let's say have a result or average as a. So what am I doing here is, let's say, now 1. And we're gonna divide that by 3.0. This. So simply here I'm declaring a variable average, which is a double type, and this has to match, right? Because I'm returning that here. If I put integer here, you see it says incompatible, double type. So if I put float here, what's gonna happen? Same thing. So it asks you, okay, let me make that a float. So in this case, funny enough, it works. So even I define a float, I'm returning floats, but I declare here double. Since float and double are pretty much the same, but double is bigger, I mean like size-wise, you can't do that. But usually this type has to match with the one you return. So this is important stuff. Let's go double. Mark that. This is a proper way. So this is inside the class, but outside your main. So let's use it. Go with the warm up. Alright, so we're gonna write this in the form of DoWhile. And what DoWhile is it does something first, then it checks its condition. So it's post loop. So it checks after. That means every time you run this, the minimum number of run in this loop is 1. So you do something, then you check the condition. So let's do the average first. So in this case, whatever I need to do, I write it here. What am I doing? Let's say I'm asking the user to give me, let's just use the console for that. Please enter 3 numbers. And yep, try to use the shortcut twice right there. So we ask the user to give us 3 numbers, and then I simply gonna get integer a. So I need the keyboard for that, right? So I'm gonna define what is it, scanner. So I'm gonna use this scanner class, call my keyboard to collect those data, equals to new scanner system in. So that's our input semicolon. So we need that. You're gonna do this outside the loop. It tells me for the scanner you have to import the scanner. Here we go. Cannot find the symbols. You have to import it. I do the lazy work now. Add the import to the top. So here we go. We did this before, so you can use that your compiler to do all this really faster. So as we go, you realize there's a lot of things you can just import, click, right click, create, and so on and so forth. So now that I have my keyboard, I'm just gonna collect those next integer. I don't want to use parse. You can use next int if you know the input is integer. So usually you get it as a string, then you convert it using one of those parse int, parse double, parse whatever. This guy read the lines and convert it already into the integer. I'm gonna do that 3 times for A, B, C. Next int. And we collect all 3. So now what I do is just calling my average, call it double D, average, which is my method, my static method, and I say A, B, and C. So this is the average I defined up here, and you see when I click on it, this guy's highlighted, so it means they're kind of corresponding to each other. And here I don't need to define or declare what kind of variable I'm sending out, but it has to match with these 3 that I'm sending. So if you're sending a string or a double, you're in trouble. So here you go, we call this, you gotta go up here, get the average. Let's make that, get rid of that, and return it whenever you call it. So you call it here, store it in D, and pretty much it. So we're gonna kind of simply print out the average of, let's go percentage %D. Oh, we're gonna go print F. No, forgot the. My brain switch between Python and this. Alright, so we're gonna do this. So we get all those 3, rainbow it to the string like that, and that is pretty much it. So right now in my condition this is true, so it's just gonna keep repeating itself. It's like an infinite loop. So every time this is true, but I wanna repeat this if the user want to. So the idea here is we're gonna do this once. We are assuming whoever run this program has 3 numbers. So we're gonna run that once. Then I ask the user, would you like to continue? Do you have more numbers? Let's say they have a set of numbers. There's 50 students. Each of them have 3 tests. We want to get the average one by one. Let's say. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna ask the user enter y for yes if you want to continue, let's say. And then I'm just gonna declare that input. So we're gonna go string inputs and collect that input from the user. So whatever it is, there we go. Oh, do I have my keyword? Yeah. Key. Oh, the arm is missing. I usually get the O and A flipped, but apparently this time I got it. Alright. So here we go. So we get that input. That now we want to check that this input. So we said while input is equals to y or alright, so the thing is I wanna get one character, right? This is a string. One of the things I'm gonna do is this. So we're gonna define something called that repeat, which is a character, and I want to do this. So I gotta get the input, and there is a method called that character at right there. So this method, basically when you have a string, it goes to the specific location, take the specific character word. You can get the first one, you can get the second one, you can get the third one. For example, if you go with after my name, if you go the first one is H, the second one is E, the third one is S, and so on and so forth. But as you know, string index or location start from 0. So the first character of a string is located as at index 0. Means if I put 0 here, I get the first word. So let me just comment that. The method character at, and this is your index, will collect the character, a character, in a specific location. Why we're doing this is the user sometimes, instead of typing Y, they will type yes, or they typing yeah, or whatever they write, right? So we know whatever have in common, the first word usually start with Y. Even I ask them to do so, sometimes they're doing different things. So here I'm gonna say, as far as the repeat now, so I'm gonna change that, equals to Y, or let's say cover the lowercase as well. Oh, see, I have an error because this has to be declared outside. So we're gonna take this guy out. I am going to do that here. Let's say outside of my do while. So we're declaring that here. Repeat. And since I'm at it, let's do the string input outside as well. So we're gonna take everything out. Try to declare all your variables unless you know what you're doing outside the loop. Sometimes loop or even conditions, anything that you might not do inside your program, do not declare anything in it. Simple enough. You might not go through the loop, or you might check the condition before you go through the loop. Always declare your variable outside of the loop. That's a good habit to get in. Alright, so let's continue here. So that should be fine. Let's try it. Let me run it. Alright, so you asked me for 3 variables or 3 numbers. Got 20, 30, and 40. So the average of 20, 30, and 40 is that. This is ugly, so we need to fix it up. Let's go do our percentage 0.2. And also after that, I like to go to the next line. Let's run it again. So stop running. Run. 30, 40, 50. This looks much better, right? So here ask me enter Y for yes if you want to continue. So anything you write, even Y, small, lowercase y, uppercase Y, or even say yeah, that works. So what if it is, get the input as a string and just take the first letter anyway. So in that case, I would say yeah, and still go back and repeat your loop. So that's the DoWhile benefit. So you're gonna DoWhile is good when you want to do something once, no matter what, and then check your condition, as we covered last week. So we're gonna go 40, 50, 60, same thing. Now this time put like yup. That also works. Let's go 80, 90, 100, and when you're done, just go no, and you're done, or whatever you want to type. As far as it's not a match, it's not a match, right? Let's say I did know my inputs here, right? So we knew that we're gonna get 3 and everything was in control. So if I don't know what's going on, let's write another program using for loop. So this is while loop. We did while before. This is DoWhile. So this is let's do one for loop as well, and cover all the loops there is. Let's define an integer days, and this is for holding. Oh, see, turns green. Green means parameters, so we're gonna get to it when we defining the class. That tells me right away I'm outside of the scope of my class. So this has to go, not the class. Here we go. So I'm here. I have to be in the main. If you're in the class, it's wrong. So it turns to the green. Green tells you this is a parameter. It's not going to talk about it today for sure, but let's go take that out. And here we go. So I'm defining the variable to hold the number of days. I'm gonna have a double for my cells. So this tells me this is for the cells figures, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have another double. I can separate them, is better that way. Total cells, and we're gonna initiate that to 0. So this is accumulator. So get a habit of this too. Anytime you have a total or sum or something that it accumulates, So you have a number, you add 1 to it, you have to initialize that. It's something that people forget. So if you have a sum and you add something 1 by 1 into a loop, you need to declare it as 0. Otherwise it gives you some sort of error. I'll show you when I'm doing this. So we need a string for the inputs. So this is a dummy. I think I already have the inputs, right? So let's put that input 2 or input 1. So this is a dummy string for collecting inputs. Let's use our panel this time. So we're gonna go input 1 and also reviewing that one as well. So option pane, show input dialog. And we're gonna put null here. No, we don't need to do that. This is just a dialog, right? For how many days do you have your cells figure? So let's say we want to add those figures or sums, but we don't know for how many days. So if you have for the 10 days, we're going to ask for 10 numbers and add them up. If they have for 5 days, we're going to ask for 5 numbers and add them up. So we're just going to ask that. I think we have to import this. No. Also, did I import it before? Yeah. So make sure you import this prior to using the panel, obviously. If you're using it, it suggests you that you have to import it, or it does it for you right away. So here we go. So we're asking for the figures, and what I'm gonna do, I get that inputs and save it as days. So the user tells me how many days it has in order to sum something up. We're gonna go into, we're gonna use our class integer because number of days are integer. Pay attention, I'm using capital I, means I'm calling the class, and there has a static method here, parse int, and input them. One of the functionality of the NetBeans is, if you really want to know how this method works, you can actually go to it. So you can hold the control and it becomes this hyperlink that you can go on any of those there is. So the original location. Let's say I wonder about parse int, how it works. You can hold your click on it. It opens that here. So let me zoom in. Here we go. So this is a method. It gets a string input and it's static. That's why we can access it from anywhere. So just calling the class itself. So we say go to that class and take that method. Can directly get that. It returns integer and it has an exception here. So if you have a format problem, it lets you know. Simple enough.
How can I see the real code?
Real codes?
Yeah, because I just have a comment. Compiled code. I don't see to the source code.
We'll look into it. I don't know.
It's the compiled version.
True. True. Should be a way. We'll look into that. That should be fun. Yeah, that would be interesting. Let's do it on the break and see what it is.
I need to get a job with the last pass and I can do that. See, this hiding.
Okay, so we get the input here, and what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use the parse to convert that into the integer and save it as a day. So that days tell me that how many times I need to go through a loop. What it is let's say I have 5 days and I'm gonna ask the user give me the cells for day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. So now we're gonna write the for loop, not that one, for this classic for loop, which is you have a increment, you declare it as a 0, and you go all the way to whatever days it is. So what it is I'm starting from 0, and I'll go all the way up. In this case, since these are the days, you don't need to start from 0. By default, your for loop start from 0 because most of the index are start from 0. That's how simple it is. I don't need it here, so I'm gonna make that 1 and equal to. So you're gonna cover some sort of range or spectrum. So as far as you start in the right location and you have the right numbers, you're fine. So you'll be incrementing here, and here what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask user again. So I'm gonna override the input 1. There is no point of declaring. So what am I doing here? Yeah, show inputs. So show input dialog. We say enter the cells for day. So let's change that properly. Let's make that count, because that's a kind of a counter. So this is my counter. Start from day 1, and if the user put 5, they have 5 days. So I'm gonna say day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. So I'm gonna go day count. And here we go. So every time I'm opening a panel and ask, okay, give me the cells for that specific day. So same procedure. I get that and convert it to, let's say cells are doubles or float, because they have like cents and such, right? So we're gonna get that. Let's make it double to be safe. Cover everything. Parse. So we're gonna convert the input to 1. Input 1 to cells. So here we go. So I'm asking every single day what's the cells for that day, and I convert it to the cells. Now I need to add them up. So the total cells plus so this is a classic way of writing it. The way it is, every time we get the cell, so initially, that's why we need to initialize that. If you don't initialize that, programs have a problem. So you have to have a number, and every time you get the cells, you add that to the previous one. You kind of keep repeating it, adding to the previous. So if you don't have that, it gives you an error and tells you, here we go. Variable total cells might not have been initialized. So you have to initialize that. So this is one of the things. Anytime you have totals or sums, make sure you set that to 0 initially, and you have no problem when you're doing the summation or so. You can also write this, if you recall, we did this before. Since these are repeating itself, and it's, you can get rid of that, delete it, and go plus equals. This is the same thing. So this is total cells equals to cells. Okay, so when we do that, then outside of the loop, this message we want to repeat one by one. This one we don't want to repeat, so we're gonna go there, and we're gonna go J option panel dot. This one is just show message dialog, right? And this is tells the location of it. So this is null. here we're just gonna say the total sales oh sorry guys, it's gonna go total sales for we gotta do this. We gotta do a string format since we learned that. We're gonna do string dot format, and we're gonna write the total sales. Let me just take the string format to the next line. Make it easier for percentage D, which is the number of days. How many was that? Is percentage F comma days and total sales. Let's test that out, and one more. There we go. So let me just kind of break that down, make it easier to see. So we're gonna print like the total sales for, let's say, 5 days is whatever number we find in this loop. So let's try it out. Oh, that's a previous one, right? So 10, 20, 30. And the answer is no here. Oh. Here we go. Yeah, I totally forgot I used the panel. So how many days do you have the sales figure? Let's say we have 5. So enter the sales for day 1. Let's say 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 60,000, and one more, and 70,000. So the total sales is that. Couple of problems. If you can see, if the cells are the big figures, it's hard to differentiate and see. There's a lot of zeros. You can't really see. Your eyes might easily trick you. So one of the things we can do is go here, and here we tell them, okay, show it in 2 decimal places. Also, we can have it separated. So if you use a comma, if I'm not mistaken here, it will separate in an accounting format. So it's just every 3 zeros, you're gonna have some sort of separate. Let's try it and see what it is. So I'm gonna stop that and start over. So run it out. Say no. And here's my panel. So let's say sales figure for 5. 10,000. Let's go big numbers. Here we go. So as you can see, so these are 2 decimal places, but each 3 of them will separate it with some sort of comma, which tells you the better visual. I can't really zoom in on that. I'm gonna kind of use magnifier, but yeah, it's tells you for 5 days is that much, and so on and so on. So can we use the DoWhile on this? So now I want to ask the user, do you have more days every time I'm running this? So we gotta kind of integrate whatever we learned here into that. So I am going to have my DoWhile here. So I'm gonna say do this. right? The format is exactly like here, right? So you do something and go all the way do this. I think that is the end of do. No, that would be the end of do. Then we're gonna say while repeat. Yep. Semicolon. Okay, so what is the problem? The Boolean operand is binary. Okay, so now before I correct this, I am going to call this repeat 1 because I already have repeat. And I'm gonna do this. Then here as the user, I'm just gonna copy that in a. No, we don't need to do that. We're just gonna use the J option panel here. So we need the dialog. So we're gonna get the show input dialog, right? Show input dialog and says type in Y for yes if you want to continue. So we're gonna do that and just separate that to the next line. Here we go. Ask the user, okay, so give me that, and we're gonna save this as a, let's say, who cares really, string input 3, and then we're gonna take the first word for it. So we're gonna go I think we're gonna declare those all the way outside, but let's do it first and we're gonna clean it up. And then we're gonna go after. Alright, so I'm gonna do this and do that outside. So we're gonna go here, define character repeat 1 and string input. So the input 2 or 3? 3. And here we go. So now what's the problem? Alright, so what I do, I integrate whatever I did previously here into the panel. So I'm declaring some sort of inputs here, and I do whatever I did, but the only thing is now I just adding a panel, ask you, would you like to continue? Would you have more dates? And take the first characters from that string and just keep checking it if they want to continue. Let's try it. So let's skip that part. So now here's my panel. Oh, let's say no. And here's the panel. So let's say for 3 days, make it simple. 10, 20, 30. So day 3, the total steps for 3 days is 60. Okay. So now is it if type Y for yes if you want to continue. I'm gonna say yeah and okay, and it goes from the beginning again. So how many days of cells you have? This time I have 10. I'm gonna go 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, and 10. And for 10 days you have $99.99. And if you want to continue, you just do that or say no, and you are done. So these are the loops as we go. I am going to cover random variables and then we take a break. Alright, so the next order of business is random variables. What are those? So creating random variables are, in any languages, is kind of mandatory, because any games you might design or any application, you might need some sort of random number or random variables to be exact. So how do we do that? Let's say we're going to explore a class called random. And we are going to create an object out of it, from it. So the first thing we're going to do, we're just going to call my random class. So there's a class called random. Let's call it rand as a name of your object. And then you're going to go new random. Here we go. So right away it gives me some sort of error. What is it? It tells you have to import it. So this is part of the Java utility build. So if you do that, on the top you'll see it right here. So you see it's like next to this guy right there. It's a utility build. Again, always you can put the star here and get it over with. You can, instead of writing multiple lines, but there we go. So we import that. Now I'm having it. I create the object rand from random class. So from this object, I can create whatever I need to. So there is a bunch of methods, and they're non-static methods. That's why we need to create the object. Is this. So let's say integer a, and I can call the rand, and there's a bunch of methods I can use to create a random number. I'm gonna start with something called a next int, and this method generates a random integer. Alright, so let's see what we actually do in here. Let's print it out. So let's say the random integer is plus. For convenient, I'm gonna comment out whatever we did so far, so I don't need to keep running all those programs and panels and such. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go all the way up here, and from this point I am going to do my slash star and go all the way down before my random variables and go star slash. So here we go. So you don't need to run it every single time. Save us a little bit of time here. Right there. So now here we go. This is a random integer. It's crazy big. It covers all the integer they are, right? So from the all the way left side to the right side is a big number usually. Here we go. It's negative whatever it is. I can't even. It's 1,918,000 and something like that. These are not practical, obviously. You see, every time I'm running it, it generates another random number. It could be positive or negative. You can limit this. You can set an interval in a way, let's say 50. It takes the input. Let's go here. You see, right here it takes the input as an integer. So I'm going to close that. So 50. In that case, see, you have a random integer from 0 to 50. Is 15 included or not? He says no. I think it's not, but let's make sure. How about that? Let's go something that there's only 3 possibilities. Here we go. 0, 2, 0, 0, 1. So the answer is no. So it's up to that number. So in this case, you have 0, 1, or 2 as an output. Okay. So the interval is, so if you have an input, put to the next int method, for example 15 in this case, your generated integer, random integer would be, is from 0 included, all the way to 15 not included. That's how you write it in mathematics. Alright, so now let's go generate some sort of double. How do you do that? So I'm using my object, rand again, and this time I'm just going to use another method called a next double. And funny enough, the only method that has an input to kind of set the limit is the integer. You can see the double doesn't have any input at all. So when you do that, that's what it is. So you can't really put anything. Let me just go semicolon. Oh, sorry, my bad. That has to be double, incompatible type. And yeah. So if you put 3 or 1.2, it gives you an error. So there's no input to this. Let me print it out, see what's happening here. So the random let's see, and here we go. So double has up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I think it's up to 13 digits, if I'm not mistaken. So this is your double. Let's say float also is the same, so we're gonna go rand dot next float. So we can compare these two together. See the differences here. Here we go. So the float is significantly smaller. It's basically half, as you can see. You can generate the Boolean even if you need. So let's say you need a random Boolean ABCD rand dot next Boolean. So this is either generate true or false randomly. Alright, so what else we have? How do I create a random character now? So that's the question. I need a random character. What can I do? So here's your Boolean, false. This time you run it It's false, false, false. Come on. True. Here we go. So it's either true or false here. So now the question is, I want to create a random. So this is a challenge. Random character. How can I do this?
ASCII table?
ASCII table. That's one of it. So ASCII table means there's a number correspond to a character. I can generate the random number and convert that to character. So that's one of the ways to do it. So let's do that. I'm gonna go character. Let's call it E. And first we're gonna generate the random integer. So I'm gonna go rand next int. So I'm gonna do that. And now this is generated number, right? Integer. I'm gonna force this number to character. So that's what I'm gonna do and see what I'm gonna get. Alright, let's print it out and see. Alright, so this time I got the question. This is a Chinese letter. Means peace. No, I don't know what that means. So you see, I'm getting the Chinese character. Why? Oh, I got the X now. Square. The reason is because I'm randomly generating the big number, right? So I have to limit that. I'm gonna limit it to 100 because I recall that A is 65 if you want to ASCII, so the ASCII has a corresponding number. So let's put it like 100, see what happens. So maybe we get better results. We get 5 now. I, S, there we go, it gets better. T, and again, still not good. A, F. Let's just take a look at the ASCII table really quick. So ASCII table, let's see what numbers are corresponding to this. In decimal is from 0 to 127?
No, 65. Sorry, 8. 65. In this month.
65? 65 is it is A.
Yeah.
Now I randomly want to pick up, so I want to try to generate what sort of decimal here. From 0 all the way to 127 covers this table. So here, if I go back, put 127, I'm covering all the ASCII there is. K right now. Space G8 L space again.
It's because the first ones are like a special symbol.
Yeah, special characters. Okay, so this is not really good, is it? I don't really like it. So let's say you want a more specific one. What we can do is this trick. We can define a string. So we're gonna manipulate our randomness. That's what's happening most of the time. It's called random, but it always have a source. So we're gonna define a string f, and let's say I wanna go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Hopefully you guys know your alphabet. Then it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that's it. So let's say I'm creating this string that I wanna randomly select from those now. So instead of going with the ASCII table, which is significantly different and harder, and I don't know what I get, I want a more controlled group. Say, okay, randomly select from one of those. So what should I do now? So first we're gonna come up with the location, right? First thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna randomly select those. We learned before that you can use character at to go to the specific location and pick a character, right? So we learned that this method goes to specific index and pick a character. So if I put like 0 here, I'm gonna get A, and if I put I don't know, D, or 0, 1, 2, 3, if I put 3 I get D and such. Let's test that out. And so if I do string f dot char at 0 I should, or 3 I should get D, right? And I get D, so that's fine. So the idea here is I'm gonna randomly generate that number that it goes to this and get it. If I do, okay, so let's say if I do f char at, no, okay, if I do f length, so what do I get now? 9. So this is the, oh, get the error. Why? It's out of bound. So that's one of the most common problem. You think it's 9, it's not 9. So this goes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is it? 1, 2, 3. It's 28 here, right? And there's another 10. So that's 38. But index start from 0, so 38 is out of range. So that doesn't work though. That works. So then you get the 9. Okay, so that being said, I need to do this. I am going to randomly, so we're gonna define some, let's make it proper. Let's say we're gonna define location of, let's go Python way, location of, it's easier to read, string. And I'm gonna use my random, the rand that I defined earlier as an object, and this time I'm gonna use my next integer that I learned, that is generate, and I say, hey, go generate me a random number from 0, which is the index, all the way to the length, which is 38 in this case. Why I don't need to do -1? Because 38 is not included, we just discovered earlier, right? So in the random, the last number you put here, 127, you're never gonna see it. It's up to 127. Here we go. So we generate that, and simply after that, when we have it, I'm gonna go character G, and I'm just gonna go f dot char at and location of the string. Then I'm gonna go and print my random, let's say the random character is from defined string is G. Save. Right. Here we go. So this time I get Z. Oh, that's really random. Both of the ASCII and my string system actually generate the same thing. Right? Butterfly effect. No, that was really random though. I think it's like 10 times you do it, you're not gonna get it. That was interesting. Here we go. So this is text from the list. This is covered from the ask. Okay, so let's take a break, huh? Get a better coffee. This one not gonna cut it. And then we're gonna continue with the classes. Okay, so let's go and create our first class, see what it is. I am going to go to my week 5 same package, right click here, and I'm gonna go Java class, and let's call this rectangle as it is. So here we go, finished. So this is a class rectangle right now. So as we know, the name of the Java file and the name of the class has to be the same. They are. This is indicates the package if there is. These are for private. These are for privacy settings. Means these two both are in the same package right now. Okay. So as I mentioned, we try to create a class, and each class has a name. So it has name, which is we set it. It has parameters, and the third one would be the methods. So it has these three, and we're gonna do that. So the name we already said it, right? When we created it, we call this rectangle. No problem right there. This is set to be rectangle. So in that case that I showed you earlier, a rectangle has two parameters: width and height. No, width and length. Sorry. So it's customary to make those parameters. So let's see. Private. You can make it public, but it's good to make those private because we don't want anyone to see those outside of this class. Alright, I'll go private. Let's go double and width. So parameters can be private, public, or protected. So what's the difference? Does anybody can tell? So private means obviously it's private. So nobody can see the context of that parameters unless you are in the same class. Public is anywhere, right? So everyone can see what's going on with it. Protected is only the classes in the same package can see that thing. So right now if I put that protect, the other class I have week 5 have access to this if it's need to. Right, so we're gonna make it private. It's customary to make it private and set your methods to go get the value if you need to basically kind of control the traffic of the usage of your parameters. Here we go. So these are for width and length of a triangle. Obviously it has these two. Since I'm at it, I'm gonna introduce you to something called a constructor. So what's a constructor? Does anybody know? Beside you? You probably know it. Constructor? Basically, yeah. So the constructor is is for creating or an object. All right. So how do we do that? Let's go. Let me write it. So a couple of rules to this. First of all, constructor name must be same as your class. So that's how you know it. So when you create a constructor, you see it has the same name as the class. Constructor also are publics because you need to access it outside of this class. How do you create the object without accessing? You may have more than one constructor. So you can construct your object differently if you need to. Okay, so we'll talk about it. So what's happening here is that this is a method, but since it has the same name as the class, it's a constructor, and it gets two values from anywhere that you construct your object, and these two values would be width and length. These are the local variables. It gets it from the outside and they set it to those parameters. Okay, so you use the constructor to set your initial parameters, values, or okay, so that's what it is, and we're gonna add more to it as we go. Just gonna go with the basic. Since I don't have any access to those, I'm gonna write two so set width, which is get alright, so we're gonna have a setter for each of one of them. Let's say you create the object, you have those values for parameters initially using constructor. Later on you change your mind and say, hey, the width was 5 or should be 7. You can use these two methods to basically send one parameters up here and set a new value for the new for your parameters width here, and for the length we're going to do the same thing. So the parameter length would be the same value in length. And also, if I want to see those values, since they're private, I need to define a get or getters. Just go get the value and show me. So what I'm gonna do is public double. So let's go get with. So there's no input in this, right? So it just has an output, and here what I do. Here I put void, here I put double, because I'm returning something, and what I return is simply the width. There's an easier way to do this, but for now I'm just typing it out. Programs generally generate all that with a single click. Yeah, but for now we're gonna do this to get what's going on. Alright, so what they are is, after I generate my object, if I need to set or the value, set the parameters with the new value, or I need to get that value out, I can use these methods separately to do that for me, right? And since I'm doing that, I'm gonna get a new method also for myself. Anything you might do. Let's go public double get area. Then return what's the area of the triangle? Length multiplied by width. Simple enough. So if you have more things about it, you can create it for your own sake. Go create the other things about rectangle, whatever there is. Here we go. So that we're gonna get the area as well, and let's leave it for now up to here, and then we add more stuff to it and improve it as we go. So this is a basic class. It has two parameters, and it has a constructor, which is construct. Initially your parameters get two inputs from the whatever you call this constructor, and set those parameters one by one to the new values. You have those separately, but people get confused a lot the difference between constructor and these methods. You cannot use the constructor after you create your object. These are for after creating the object. So let's see what I mean by that. Let's go use those and we get the idea. Let's go back to our main here. So this is what we did prior, and let's go create some object and see how that works. So I'm gonna create some object out of my handmade class that I just did. You did this before using the predefined classes in am I inside the loop on this, or yeah? No, that's a main. So here we are going to create the objects. Let's create two objects. So the format is clear, you guys did before. So first you start with the name of your class. We did the same thing for scanner, for the random. We create object out of something we had before. The class is defined. Now we're creating object out of our own class. So this would be the name of the class. Name of the object, let's call it rec1. And you use the keyword new, and you call the constructor. So that's why both of them are the same name. Later on you might realize there's a cases that they are not the same. It's more advanced. We get to it when we get to it. And that's it. So here in the input, if you take a look, we have two input, and those inputs are these two. So width and length accordingly gonna go in to be set initially when you create the object. So here you're gonna go 3, let's go 3 and 4 for the length and width. So in this case I'm creating an object named rec1 from the class rectangle, and using the constructor to set the defined parameters, in this case width and length, to 3 and 4. Alright, so let's do another. So I can have many objects out of the same class. This one is another rectangle called rec2, so the name is different. Parameters of width 5 and 6. Right, same thing. So let's go print stuff out, see what we created so far. So who can tell me, if I do this rec1, what would I see? Hash code. Alright, let's see what it is. So here gives you the hash code. Week5 is the package. This is the name of your class, and so that's a memory location. So how can I see those parameters that I set? For that, you're gonna go to your method. So if you put dot, you can actually see the method you created. Each class comes with basic methods that there is as a kind of a framework, but the one that I created is in the bold form, or in the bold font. Sorry. Here we go. So we're gonna go get the length. So this gives me the length, and here we go. So 4. So let's make it proper. I'm gonna say okay. The length and here we go. So instead of get length, here I'm just gonna use get width, which is I define. So it goes and get those parameters, and then I print it out. So in that case, rec1 should give me 3 and 4 according. 4 and 3. Sorry, this is width. My typo. So now let's go for the rec1. You know what? Since you need to print that out accordingly, I'm gonna go to my class and create a method that prints all of them for me. How about that? So I'm gonna go to my class rec here, and I'm gonna add another method. And let's go public void let's call it print rec. And what this method does, this is the first time I'm doing this, it gets the object as an input, not variables, the whole object. So we're gonna have a rectangle, let's call it dummy. So it's a dummy object. I think I'm missing the L. Here we go. So it gets that object. So instead of I go one by one and print, this is the length, this is the width, this is that, using all those methods, I'm gonna do this here once as a method, and every time I call it and send that object to it, it's just gonna print everything for me. Easy. Spend it. So what I mean by that is we're gonna go the length of rectangle is okay. So we're gonna go call the dummy dot so whatever object I send to, I'm gonna replace by the dummy, and then you're gonna go to get the length. So what else? Let's get the area too, right? So all right. So what am I doing here is I send the object up here and print those, and that's it. So in that case, when I'm here, instead of writing all that crap here again, I'm just gonna delete that and make it neat and clean. So I'm creating two objects. I am going to go rec1, and as you can see, I have this new method called printRec. So I'm gonna use that. And send rec1 to it. So that would be rec1. And repeat the same thing for rec2. So what's happening here is I'm creating an object right here, rec1, with parameters 3 and 4. And here I get that once, send it back to this method here, and get the length, width, and area printed out and go back to my code. And I do the same thing for rec2. Let's try it out. There we go. So rec1 has a length of 4 and 3 as I expected. And obviously the area is 12. And rec2 is 6 and 5. The multiplication of that two is 30. So now let's say I'm rec2, 5, and 6. I want to change that to 7 and 8. For the same object though, not the new one, same one. So I'm gonna go rec2, and guess what? I have a set length. So we're gonna set the length to, what's the length already? 6. I want to set that to 7. And now oh, come on. Apologies. Here we go. Get rid of that. Not all the time shortcuts actually. So rec2. So this is a point. Why don't I use the constructor to do that? Because they accept both of them, right? So what's the point of that? Why can I do this? Send 7 and 8 into this. Because the constructor is for new objects. And we just modifying, so we gotta use those instead. So make sure you understand the difference between these guys, get on setters, and the constructor. Where's the constructor? Here. Alright, so in that case, changes 7 and 8. Let's see that actually I did. So I'm just gonna copy this line, paste it there. So we're gonna print the parameters again. So here we go. So the rec2 was 6 and 5 before, now it's 7 and 8. So I want you to pay attention to this. This is important. These are the methods that when you create the object, it becomes part of the object. You cannot use those without creating an object unless you make it static. So that's the point of it, static. So let's say this guy, right? Yeah.
Why are you using?
Okay, so what I did, I adding static here. So the difference would be that before, if I need to access this guy directly now, I can call the class directly. So I can go rectangle dot, and you see this is available to you. None of them is, except that one. Why this one is? Because it's static. So in that case, I can do it this way as well. Here we go. So I print the same thing again. Funny enough,
You can do that. That's strange, but you can.
So in order to access a method from directly using the address of your class here, you're just gonna go here and make that static. Otherwise you can't. And that's the difference. We're gonna go through this more and more and we get the idea of it. So save, go back here. So this should go away. It did. Now it's messed up. Here we go. So all of them kind of. So what did I do? Go back here. Oh, a typo. Obviously. There we go. All set. Run it up. And it gives it the same thing. So let's go back to the class, and I have all that, and let's say improve things. There is more to the class than there is. First of all, you can have more than one constructor if you like. So you can have more than one constructor. So let's make more. So I'm gonna make one which is public rectangle. Alright, before I create that, it makes my life easily. I'm gonna introduce you something called as shadowing. Has anybody heard about shadowing? What it is like that. Instead of, this is crazy. You have a parameters called width, and you have a parameters called length, and you create two dummy variables here, W and length, and you take those values and set it to the parameters with on it. That's redundancy. You have four parameters, two variables and two parameters, which is basically they are the same. So the thing you can do, that's too many unnecessary variables that you don't really need to use. What you can do, you can use the same thing and instead of, so these two are the same, but these are the same as the parameters, and that's how you differentiate. You use the word this, so this is what they call shadowing. Means I'm using the same name. So in that case, your life is easy. Instead of W and length, which is W is length, len is length and such, so you just have too many names tossing in your mind. Just using the same thing. So we said, okay, I'll get the value width and set it to the parameters width. You see this green now. But this actually helps you shadow it. It's called a shadow. And this is easy. You can do the same thing here also. So I'm gonna go with this. Alright, so I'll correct all that. So in that case, I can easily see what is not. Those are good, and that's it. Yeah. So in that case, it's way better. So you always have width and length, and then you kind of link it properly from your variable to your parameters right here. Okay, so now, as I told you, we can have more than one constructor. What I mean by that is, let's define two more. And this one doesn't take any inputs. And so what I'm doing this is this. I said, okay, if somebody called this, don't take any input, and use your shadowing to set the width and the length one by one. So what this line means is this. So instead of writing this 2, let me just paste it here and set that to 1 and 1. I can say, hey, these are the same, just write this. So you can comment that out, and instead of that, I can just do this. And basically it works the same. So I have two constructors. One gets 2 of them, and set those to those parameters, and I have one that is generated. So it gets, when you call it, it generates a rectangle with the length. It's basically a square, right? So size 1 and 1. Let's have another one. This one, take the string width and string length as an input. So you can even change the type. Let's say you want to have a string input. You can do that. And here what it is I'm gonna use this width equals to, I'm gonna use double dot parse and convert the width to the number. I think I'm missing a dot here, right? Yep. And similarly, I can do the same thing for my length. So now I have 3 constructors, all the same name. One, my classic one, get 2 double numbers and set it to that. This one has no input at all, and what it does is sets the length and width to 1 and 1, which is this guy here. I'm just using the shadowing technique, and this guy takes string as an input. So when you say 5 is a string type, it converts it to the double, then set it to. There's many I can create. Let's have 3 for now. Let's go back and test it out. So here I'm gonna create rectangle object rec3. So if I have no inputs, that would be my generic rectangle with the size 1 and 1. Let's find out. So, oh, you see it turns green, means I'm outside of the main. So I'm gonna cut that. Go here, paste it, and I'm gonna have a separator in some sort. I'm gonna put it here. And if you run that, okay, everything's fine. Now I'm gonna go to rect3. Rect3 dot. You see, that's an interesting fact that I just realized, and it's really good to share. Here, when I create those objects, okay, so right now, I don't have the print rec, right? So here I use rec1.printRec because at the time when I create the object was non-static. Here I made it static. Go back here. Sorry. So I made it static now. So in that case, on rec3 is not available anymore. Okay, so I'm gonna just use rec. Are you saying like this? Just type print. Now, I think I should save it first. Because, no. Okay, so we're gonna go. Now it doesn't work. So now, since it's static, I'm gonna directly call the class, and what I'm gonna do is here we go. So now I have the print rec and gonna print rec3, run it, and you can see here we go. So that's your generic 1 and 1, and the area is 1. Let's create another object.
If you try to declare rectangle rec3, just it like a new object, you still can rec3 dot the static and it works.
I'll get it to try. Let's just use another rectangle. So rec4 now. This one I'm just gonna have an input string. So let's go 12. And 15. So I'm doing it in alright, so save. Here we go. So 12 and 15. So this is using three different constructors. This is your generic one, this is the one with the string, and this is the original with the number. Where is it? Right here.